Doctor, are you here?
Yep. Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Sorry about that.
How many times have I told you you need to wear a mask when you are in there?
Oh, honey, ain't nothing up in that tunnel going to be blocked by wearing a mask. Trust me. Hello, everybody. My name is Jeff Arbuckle, and I want to welcome you to the very first episode of B-Movie Enema, the series. Now, since this is the first episode, maybe it would be best for you to have some sort of a quick primer, right? So I will now call on my lovely co-host, Nurse Disembody, to give you that history lesson. Nurse, take it away.
B-Movie Enema is a website that has been running since 2014. With 250 reviews of movies and still going strong, this is where Jeff comes to let his head run free. He mostly likes to watch horror, action, and exploitation films. Some might say this is how Jeff ended up where you see him now. It's also possible he thinks way more people care about his blog than really do. Either way, this is what we call progress. Maybe this is something that can really help.
Thank you, Nurse. So you might be thinking, oh fuck, another dumb asshole, smarmy jerk fuck from YouTube. He's probably going to be doing that super edgy thing from 2010 and joke and poke fun at the movies he's watching. And he probably thinks he's just as funny as those dudes from Mystery Science Theater 3000 too. And you're probably also thinking, geez, what is wrong with some of these jerk-offs? Well, you're probably right in some way, shape, or form on all of those things that you might be thinking. As for that last question, let me answer it this way. What's wrong with this jerk-off is blunt force anxiety, mild depression, a cripplingly overactive imagination, delusions of being funny, with a pinch of delusions of grandeur, just to name a few. But if you're still watching, well, the joke's on you now, because I now own your eyeballs and your eyeballs' asses. So you'll keep tuning in just to watch this fucking thing crash and burn around me. All right, Nurse. Well, I see that you have our movie for this week, so fill me in.
This week, we have the 1978 movie called Eyes Behind the Stars. It's about a photographer named Peter who is shooting his model, Karen, in a forest. Suddenly, they get the feeling they are being watched. Eventually, Peter learns that the photo shoot captured more than just forestry and Karen. This begins a mystery involving men in black, the military, and aliens chasing after intrepid news reporter Tony.
Okay, so yes, we have Eyes Behind the Stars. Now, this was directed by Mario Gariazzo, and now this is a true story about him. He was a Canadian fellow who directed all of his movies in the African language of Swahili. Now, I'm just yanking your chain there. He was Italian, like super Italian. Now, he made some spaghetti westerns with the likes of Richard Harrison and some crime dramas with actors like Klaus Kinski and so forth. And he even made a movie that was called White Slave. Now, this kind of intrigues me a little bit because of two reasons. One, Whitey enslaved, most likely Lady Whitey, and that it has an alternate title of Cannibal Holocaust 2. Now, additionally, he directed the Eerie Midnight Horror Show, and that's kind of a special movie in and of itself that I'll get to later in this first season of B-Movie Enema, the series. But it was the very first B-Movie Enema article that I ever wrote. So how's about that for some poetic symmetry? Now, like any good Italian flick from the 70s, you got a bunch of people from all over the world. You have some Austrians, some Frenchies, you even have a Martin Balsam. Now, just like any Italian movie, all of these actors were speaking in their original native language for it to later be overdubbed in whatever language the movie was ultimately to be exported in. But let me get myself ready for this. It's not an easy job that I have. I hope that we can at least get comfortable with one another, have some good times, watch some good movies together. Nurse, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of looking forward to this movie. It sounds kind of creepy.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
All right. So, I'm going to get the movie rolling, and while I get to work, we'll have you nice and cleaned out here before the end of it, and we'll see you here in a little bit.
Forgetting something?
Oh, yes. Mask.
And?
Oh, and
Gloves.
gloves.
Yes.
All right, so let's get the movie rolling, and I will see you in a little bit. Ugh. All right, so, I mentioned earlier, like any good Italian movie, you're going to often have people who are speaking in different languages and being overdubbed into whatever language is being exported to and so on and so forth. But also, like any good Italian movie, you have some relatively effective music. There's this kind of silly little, everybody's having a good time on this photo shoot kind of music. But then when Peter and Karen go to the spooky spot, by the way, I love that Karen actually says that this place seems a little spooky. We do get appropriately spooky synthesized music. Now, the music is attributed to Marcello Giambini, and he had a pretty damn busy career, having scored some 90 plus scores before his death. Now, his credits include a pretty solid what's what of Euro cinema, including one of the Emmanuel sequels, Anthropophagus, some sci-fi flicks, a Star Wars ripoff, a James Bond ripoff. He pretty much did it all. The guy even worked on Joe D'Amato's Erotic Nights of the Living Dead, and that's got Laura Gimser in it, and I'm a fan of that. Anyway, so our buddy Peter gets weirded out, and he goes to bug this old dude and his dog, right? So, really, I'm kind of digging this so far. You've got the situation in which the photographer and his model are on this happy little photo shoot, but then they get the heebie-jeebies, right? So, well, that basically leads to Peter getting curious at the very least and obsessed at the most, and he suddenly zapped away from the old man's house and finding himself on the slab in a UFO, which they later pronounce as UFO. He's getting probed, not mind probed, not the anal stuff, you perverts. But anyway, there's an aesthetic here that I like, at least in this first act. I mean, to me, a solidly effective UFO abduction movie should do a couple of things. First, it should have the alien dudes kind of operating around corners and in shadows. Hell, they aren't even visible unless they are filmed, or so it seems. Now, second, the aliens better look pretty damn cool. And these guys who are all covered up except for this black visor thing, they're effectively creepy looking. Now, real quick, let's talk about some of our cast. Now, our lead, Tony, is played by Robert Hoffman. Now, Hoffman is an Austrian actor who mostly did TV stuff after this movie. He had a 40-year career, having done a lot of movies in the earlier part of his career, and then a string of TV parts, including a couple of episodes of Dallas in the later part of his career. Now, Tony's secretary, Monica, is played by French actress Nathalie Delon, and we'll see more of her in the next segment, but she didn't really have too many roles, but worked relatively steadily from the late 60s up to the early 80s. Now, by far and away, our most notable and recognizable actor in this movie is the American Martin Balsam. And he's somewhat recognizable for being confused with Ernest Borgnine, but Balsam had a pretty huge career of his own. He passed away in 1996, but had racked up almost 180 credits and a Best Supporting Actor Oscar for 1965's 1,000 Clowns. He was one of the 12 Angry Men. He was in On the Waterfront, but uncredited. He starred in the Joe Don Baker classic Mitchell. He was in Death Wish 3, and he was in both versions of Cape Fear. But most should know him for how badly he was dubbed in this movie. Now, I'm fucking with you. Most will know him as Detective Arbogast in Hitchcock's Psycho. In fact, forget that shower scene. He is part of my favorite scary moment in that whole movie. But what do you think, Nurse Disembodied? I think we should probably get back to it. I mean, the mystery deepens in this next segment of Eyes Behind the Stars. So, we'll see you at the end of the second act. Okie dokie. So, Tony is hot on the case to figure out what happened to his friends Peter and Karen. Meanwhile, Inspector Martin Balsam is also trying to sort out what this weird shit is that's going on as well, especially after that kindly old man that Peter went to when he was being chased by the very scary alien dudes was found in shock with his dog lying next to him. The dog was blind. Now, how they really know that the dog wasn't blind to begin with, beats me, but whatever. But that old man ends up dying in the hospital after some burns started to appear on his face. So this leads Tony to go talk to a Coleman Perry to get some info on the UFOs. And Perry is a UFO researcher slash believer, and it's kind of hard to say exactly which he is because it seems like he's pretty much with it. Very intelligent sounding, seemingly like an antique or an art dealer or something like that. But whenever the UFO shit comes up, he gets kind of sexually aroused, it seems. But there's also some men in black characters who threaten Tony and warn him not to report the story and just forget about it. And these people are called the Silencers. Now, and I love that characters in the movie say that these people, the Silencers, are part of a group commonly known as, quote, I shit you not, a group of silencers. Anyway, there's a trail of dead bodies now with radiation burns, and these silencers from the group commonly known as a group of silencers are around. Inspector Martin Balsam is mad that Tony and Monica and Perry are sticking their noses into this investigation, and so on and so forth. It's just a big old mess now in vaguely Italian village, Italy. By the way, that is where this takes place. It's called vaguely Italian village, Italy, and it's somewhere near vaguely Swiss town in northern Italy.
Do you believe in UFOs?
Well, that's a difficult question, isn't it? I mean, do I believe that there is such a thing as extraterrestrial life? I mean, well, yes. I mean, the universe seems to be way too big and way too old for there not to be, right? But then the question always comes up if we've been visited or if the secret to life on Earth was seeded by aliens. And I feel like there are several ways to try to dissect this. Like, maybe the amount of belief one has is directly maybe proportionate to how far away they are from a population center. If a person lives, way the fuck out there in a tiny one-horse town 100 miles outside of a city, you better believe they think UFOs are a thing and they get anally probed every day. Now, if you live in a subway, maybe you believe in UFOs. And if you live in the city, the UFO better be like those Independence Day ships getting ready to blow up all your famous buildings and monuments, because otherwise you ain't buying it. Now, don't get me wrong though, I know lots of intelligent people who really want to know the truth. And I, don't know as many people who go in on the conspiracy theories about aliens among us, how they are manipulating things and pulling the strings in specific ways every day, and so on and so forth. And, that's kind of the funny thing about people who go out looking for UFOs. They can be well read. They can have all the science figured out. But there's that very thin line in which once crossed, you start sounding like a total crank.
So you don't believe they are living among us?
God, I wish they were. I mean, that would help explain all of the little weird things that happen to you, or help explain why some people say or think the things that they do, And, everybody's got that one friend, right? Like the guy who has a normal job, the person who's got a real nice, respectable spouse, kids are smart and well-read and well-raised and what have you. But, and then they also get along with you really, really well because you both like the same baseball team or on the same bowling team, or maybe you're into the same type of porno. And then he says something like, I read that it's a good idea to get transfusions of elephant blood so you always have the memory of how many times you got abducted by aliens and programmed to be a sleeper agent for some clandestine organization of anti-human evildoers. And then you're left with your mouth agape, wondering if everything in your life was, worth it to get to that exact moment that your friend came out as a crazy person. Anyway, I think we should probably get back to the movie.
That's probably for the best.
Yeah. So get yourself ready for the thrilling final act of Eyes Behind the Stars, and we'll be back after the movie is over with some final thoughts. And then hopefully not very crazy thoughts at the very least. What the fuck was that ending? To kill our good guys out of the blue just before they figured out the mystery, I guess, of this whole movie? And then to tell us that this was based on factual shit? I mean, that's a good way to piss me off, man. No, really. Do you know what the problem is with this movie, Nurse Disembodied?
It's not very good.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously. But, beyond that.
It's not very interesting.
Yeah, I admit. I was into the first act. We got some creepy stuff in the forest. We got cool-looking aliens. Generally speaking, I was liking the scary sci-fi alien business. However, it goes from that to these men in black, these secret organization people, this betrayal, boring shit. And I just wanted a hell of a lot more aliens and a fuckload less shady government dudes. I mean, I think there were times in which the aliens were doing things, but they were doing basically the same thing as the shady silencers from a group commonly known as silencers. The shit was that. I mean, both the silencers and the aliens seem to be trashing places, I think. So who's doing what to whom? All the good guys die. There were at least like 4 plots that were all going on in this movie, and they all feel like they were kind of shoehorned in. So, it just it's just packaged as this UFO movie with scary aliens, but it just turns into, I don't know, like All the President's Men or something? I mean, yes, there was this show once that was called The Invaders. Have you ever seen that, Nurse?
No, I can't say I have. I don't watch a lot of TV.
Of course you wouldn't. Anyway, that was a cool show with lots of intrigue, a real plot for aliens to take over the government. So there, you have a guy who knows that the aliens are a thing. People are either not believing him or the aliens are trying to stop him and so on. It's real intriguing. And this feels like that Eyes Behind the Stars should have been creepier. It's just all bad guys in radiation poisoning and journalists and a surprise psychic at the end of this movie. Not to mention, with Tony found out that Monica was a spy, he beat the holy living shit out of her, and that was...
Yeah, that was...
yeah, ooh.
So, what happens next?
I don't know. I mean, we're not off to an exactly spectacular start, are we?
We're getting canceled, aren't we?
Someday, but not today. Next week, we do have a much better movie. Episode number 2 takes us to the late 80s with a light-hearted monster romp called My Mom's a Werewolf. And that should be a lot of fun. And maybe we can figure out a way to, I don't know, spice up the episode or something. I'm sure it'll be a fun time. But before we sign out, tell everyone out there where they can find the B-Movie Anima stuffs.
You can find all of Jeff's writings and upcoming episodes at www.bmovieanima.com. You can follow the page at Facebook and Twitter and check out episodes on YouTube. If you have a Roku, get Other Worlds TV and check him out along with all the other hosts that appear there on weekends.
Thanks a lot. So, on behalf of Nurse Disembodied, I'm Jeff Arbuckle, and we'll see you next time on B-Movie Anima, the series. And remember, keep looking up. Oh, hey! Was there ever any indication what the fucking title of this movie meant?